The rain fell in sheets, drumming against the windshield of the city bus as it rumbled through the dimly lit streets of downtown. The wipers worked overtime, struggling to keep up with the downpour. Inside, the bus was nearly empty, just a few passengers scattered across the seats, lost in their own worlds. At the wheel, Marcus Johnson sat with the calm demeanor of a man who had seen it all. His dark hands gripped the steering wheel with practiced ease, his eyes scanning the road ahead with a vigilance that belied his relaxed posture. Marcus had been driving buses for 5 years now, ever since he left his old life behind. To the passengers who rode his route, he was just another friendly face, a quiet, unassuming man who always had a smile and a kind word. But Marcus was far from ordinary. Beneath his bus driver's uniform lay the scars of a life lived on the edge, a life he had sworn to leave behind. Once, Marcus had been a special agent with the FBI, one of the best in the field. He had spent years taking down some of the most dangerous criminals in the country, from drug cartels to human trafficking rings. But that life had come at a cost. The constant danger, the sleepless nights, the weight of the lives he couldn't save, it had all taken its toll. When the opportunity came to walk away, he took it, trading his badge for a bus driver's license and a quiet apartment on the outskirts of the city. For the most part, Marcus had found peace in his new life. He enjoyed the simplicity of it, the routine. But every now and then, the past would creep in, a news story about a case he had worked, a face in the crowd that looked too familiar. On those nights, he would lie awake, staring at the ceiling, wondering if he had made the right choice. Tonight, however, the past wasn't just a memory. It was about to come crashing into his presence, and the doors hissed open. A group of 3 men stepped aboard, their faces obscured by hoods and scarves. They moved with a swagger that immediately set Marcus on edge. He watched them in the rearview mirror as they made their way to the back of the bus, their voices low and menacing. Marcus didn't like the look of them, but he kept his expression neutral. He had learned long ago that sometimes the best way to handle trouble was to avoid it altogether. He closed the doors and pulled away from the curb, the bus lurching slightly as it merged back into traffic. For a few minutes, everything was quiet. Then, one of the men stood up and made his way to the front of the bus. He leaned against the partition separating Marcus from the passengers, his eyes cold and calculating. "Hey, driver," the man said, his voice dripping with disdain. "You missed our stop." Marcus glanced at him in the mirror. "I stop at every designated stop," he replied calmly. "If you missed yours, I can let you off at the next one." The man's lips curled into a sneer. "You think you're smart, huh? You think you can talk back to me?" Marcus felt a familiar tension coil in his chest, but he kept his voice steady. "I'm just doing my job, sir. If you have a problem, you can file a complaint with the transit authority." The man's hand shot out, grabbing Marcus by the collar. "I don't think you understand who you're dealing with," he hissed. "We're the kings of this city, and you're just a nobody. You don't get to talk to us like that." Marcus's eyes narrowed, but he didn't move. He could feel the weight of the man's grip, the heat of his breath. He could take him down, he knew he could. But that would mean revealing the skills he had worked so hard to bury. And once that door was open, there was no closing it. "Let go of me," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. "Now." The man laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Or what?" Marcus's jaw tightened. "You gonna call the cops?" He had hoped to avoid this, but it seemed the choice had been taken out of his hands. Slowly, deliberately, he reached up and pried the man's fingers from his collar. The man's eyes widened in surprise, but before he could react, Marcus twisted his arm and slammed him face first into the partition. The other 2 men were on their feet in an instant, but Marcus was already moving. He stepped out of the driver's seat, his movements fluid and precise. The first man lunged at him, but Marcus sidestepped the attack and delivered a sharp blow to his ribs, sending him sprawling. The second man pulled a knife, but Marcus disarmed him with a swift, practiced motion, sending the blade clattering to the floor. In less than a minute, it was over. The three men lay on the floor of the bus, groaning in pain. Marcus stood over them, his chest heaving, his eyes blazing with a fire he hadn't felt in years. "Get off my bus," he growled. "And if I ever see you again, you'll regret it." The men scrambled to their feet and stumbled out the door, their bravado shattered. Marcus watched them go, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew this wasn't the end. These men were part of something bigger, something dangerous. And now, they knew he wasn't just a bus driver. As he returned to his seat and pulled the bus back onto the road, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that his quiet life was about to come to an end. Great! Let's dive into the next chapter, where we'll explore the aftermath of the confrontation and start to unravel the larger conflict. The gangsters won't take this lightly, and Marcus's past is about to collide with his present in ways he can't drizzle by the time Marcus finished his route and parked the bus in the depot. He sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, staring out at the empty lot, his mind racing. The adrenaline from the fight had faded, leaving behind a gnawing unease. He knew those men wouldn't let this go. They were part of a gang, the Kings, they had called themselves, and gangs didn't take kindly to being humiliated. Marcus sighed and ran a hand over his face. He had hoped to leave this kind of life behind, but it seemed trouble had a way of finding him no matter where he went. He grabbed his jacket and stepped off the bus, locking it behind him. The depot was quiet, the only sound the distant hum of the city. He made his way to his car, a beat-up sedan that had seen better days, and slid behind the wheel. As he drove home, his thoughts kept circling back to the confrontation. He had acted on instinct, falling back on the training he had tried so hard to forget. It had felt good, in a way, to know he still had it in him. But it had also reminded him of why he had walked away in the first place. The life of a special agent was one of constant danger, of sacrifices and losses. He had seen too much, done too much, and he wasn't sure he could go back to that. When he pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building, he noticed a black SUV parked near the entrance. It was out of place in this neighborhood, where most cars were older models with peeling paint and dented fenders. Marcus's instincts kicked in, and he scanned the area as he got out of his car. He didn't see anyone, but the feeling of being watched lingered. He took the stairs to his apartment, his senses on high alert. When he reached his door, he paused, listening for any sounds from inside. Everything seemed normal, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. He unlocked the door and stepped inside, was small flipping and sparsely furnished, a reflection of the simple life Marcus had chosen. A couch sat against one wall, facing a TV that rarely got turned on. A small kitchenette took up one corner, and a door led to the bedroom. Everything was exactly as he had left it, but the air felt different, charged with an unseen tension. Marcus moved through the apartment, checking each room. When he reached the bedroom, he froze. On the bed, lying in the center of the neatly made covers, was a single playing card, the King of Spades. His jaw tightened as he picked it up, his mind racing. It was a message, clear and unmistakable. Marcus spent the rest of the night on edge, his sleep fitful and restless. Every sound outside his window made him tense, every creak of the building settling felt like a threat. By the time the sun rose, he was exhausted but no closer to figuring out what to do. He considered calling the police, but he knew it wouldn't do much good. The Kings were a powerful gang, with connections that reached deep into the city's underworld. They had likely already covered their tracks, and without evidence, there was little the police could do. Besides, Marcus wasn't exactly eager to draw attention to himself. The fewer people who knew about his past, the better. As he got ready for work, he made a decision. He would keep his head down, finish his shift, and then figure out his next move. If the Kings came after him again, he would deal with it. But he wasn't going to let them scare him into hiding. The morning passed without incident. Marcus drove his route as usual, greeting passengers with his usual smile and friendly demeanor. But beneath the surface, he was on high alert, scanning every face that boarded the bus, every car that followed too closely. He half expected the gangsters to show up again, but they didn't. It wasn't until the afternoon that things took a turn. Marcus was parked at a stop, waiting for passengers to board, when a man in a suit stepped onto the bus. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with a face that was all sharp angles and cold eyes. He didn't look like the usual fare, and Marcus immediately knew something was off. The man made his way to the front of the bus and leaned against the partition, his gaze fixed on Marcus. "You're a hard man to find, Johnson," he said, his voice low and gravelly. Marcus's heart skipped a beat, but he kept his expression neutral. "I'm just a bus driver," he replied. "Not sure what you're talking about." The man smirked. "Cut the act. We know who you are. Or should I say, tightened on the wheel. I don't know what you're talking about," he said again, his voice firm. The man leaned in closer, his eyes boring into Marcus's. "The Kings don't take kindly to being disrespected. You made a mistake last night, and now you're going to pay for it." Marcus met his gaze, his own eyes hard. "I don't respond well to threats," he said. "Tell your bosses that if they want a fight, they'll get one. But they won't like how it ends." The man's smirk widened, but there was no humor in it. "We'll see about that." He straightened and turned to leave, but paused at the door. "Oh, and Johnson. Watch your back. You're not as untouchable as you think." With that, he stepped off the bus and disappeared into the crowd. Marcus watched him go, his mind racing. The Kings weren't just a local gang, they were organized, connected, and now they knew who he was. This wasn't just about a bus driver who had stood up to them. This was personal. And Marcus knew, deep down, that this was only the beginning. Got it. Let's move into the next chapter, where the tension escalates and Marcus begins to realize the full extent of the danger he's in. The Kings are not just a local gang, they're a well-organized criminal empire, and Marcus's past is about to come back to haunt him in ways he never expected. That evening with a heavy sense of foreboding. The encounter with the man in the suit had left him on edge, and he couldn't shake the feeling that he was being watched. As he drove home, he took a circuitous route, doubling back and weaving through side streets to make sure he wasn't being followed. When he finally pulled into the parking lot of his apartment building, he sat in his car for a long moment, scanning the area for any signs of trouble. Everything seemed quiet, but Marcus wasn't taking any chances. He grabbed his bag and headed inside, taking the stairs 2 at a time. When he reached his apartment, he paused outside the door, listening for any unusual sounds. Hearing nothing, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The apartment was exactly as he had left it, but the tension in the air was palpable. Marcus moved through the rooms, checking every corner, every closet. When he reached the bedroom, he froze. The King of Spades was still on the bed, but now there was something else beside it, a manila envelope, sealed and unmarked. Marcus's heart pounded as he picked it up. He hesitated for a moment, then tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a photograph. The paper bore a short, typed message. Asterisk, "We know who you are, Johnson. And we know what you're hiding. If you want to keep your secrets, you'll come to the address below. Tonight. Alone. Asterisk." The photograph was of Marcus, taken years ago during his time with the FBI. He was standing in front of a courthouse, his badge visible on his belt. It was a photo he hadn't seen in years, one he thought had been buried along with his old life. Marcus sank onto the bed, his mind racing. The Kings had done their homework. They knew about his past, and they were using it against him. But why? What did they want from him? He stared at the photo, his thoughts swirling. He had walked away from the FBI to escape this kind of life, but it seemed the past wasn't done with him yet. The address on the note led Marcus to an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It was a grim, foreboding place, surrounded by chain-link fences and overgrown weeds. The rain had started again, falling in a steady drizzle that soaked through Marcus's jacket as he approached the building. He had come alone, as instructed, but he wasn't unarmed. A small pistol was tucked into the waistband of his jeans, hidden beneath his jacket. He didn't plan to use it, but he wasn't going to walk into a trap unprepared. The warehouse door creaked open as Marcus approached, revealing a dimly lit interior. He stepped inside, his eyes scanning the shadows. The space was vast and empty, save for a few rusted machinery parts and stacks of crumbling boxes. At the far end of the room, a single light bulb hung from the ceiling, casting a pool of light on a figure seated in a chair. Marcus approached cautiously, his hand hovering near his weapon. As he drew closer, he recognized the man from the bus, the one who had confronted him earlier. He was flanked by two others, both armed and wearing the same cold, calculating expressions. "You came," the man said, his voice echoing in the empty space. "I wasn't sure you would." "I'm here," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "What do you want?" The man leaned forward, his elbows resting on his knees. "We want you to work for us." Marcus frowned. "Work for you? Doing what?" The man smirked. "You're a former FBI agent. You've got skills we could use. Connections. Knowledge. We're expanding our operations, and we need someone like you to help us stay ahead of the law." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not interested." The man's expression darkened. "You don't have a choice, Johnson. We know who you are. We know what you've done. If you don't cooperate, we'll make sure everyone else knows too. Your quiet little life." His jaw tightened. "It's over." He had expected threats, but this was worse than he had imagined. The Kings weren't just after him, they wanted to control him. And they were willing to destroy everything he had built to get what they wanted. "You're making a mistake," Marcus said, his voice low and dangerous. "I walked away from that life for a reason. I'm not going back." The man stood, his eyes narrowing. "You think you're in a position to negotiate? You're nothing but a washed-up bus driver. You work for us, or we ruin you. It's that simple." Marcus took a step forward, his hand moving to his weapon. "I don't respond well to threats," he said. "And I don't work for criminals." The man's smirk returned, but there was no humor in it. "We'll see about that." Before Marcus could react, the two armed men stepped forward, their weapons trained on him. Marcus froze, his mind racing. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't going down without a fight. The warehouse was silent except for the rhythmic patter of rain on the corroded roof. Marcus stood frozen, his hand hovering near the pistol tucked into his waistband. The two armed men flanking the suited gangster didn't flinch, their guns trained squarely on his chest. The man in the suit, Victor Crane *, Marcus would later learn his name, smirked, relishing the power imbalance. "Last chance, Johnson," Victor said, straightening his tie. "Work with us, or we leak your file to every news outlet in the city. Imagine the headlines, FBI's Golden Boy covered up massacre. How many lives did you ruin to protect your precious reputation?" Marcus's jaw tightened. They knew about Detroit, the memory surged unbidden, smoke, screams, a botched raid that had left 6 civilians dead. The FBI had buried it, and Marcus had buried himself in guilt. He'd resigned days later. Now, the Kings had dug it up like grave robbers. "You've got the wrong guy," Marcus growled. "I don't negotiate with Marcus's shoulder as he dove behind a rusted forklift. The metallic ping of gunfire echoed through the warehouse, rounds tearing into machinery and sending sparks flying. Marcus crouched, pulse roaring in his ears. Think. Adapt, his FBI training kicked in, assess threats, exploit weaknesses. Weakness #1 the King's arrogance. They'd brought him here to intimidate, not expecting a fight. Weakness #2 the warehouse itself, decaying, unstable, full of shadows. Marcus yanked a fire extinguisher from the wall and hurled it toward a stack of oil drums. The men instinctively turned their guns, shredding the drums. Flammable liquid pooled across the floor. Marcus struck a match from his pocket, a habit from his smoking days, and tossed it. The explosion was deafening. A wall of flame erupted, cutting off Victor's men. Marcus bolted through the smoke, vaulting over debris. Shouts followed him, "Don't let him reach the exits, !" But Marcus wasn't heading for the exits. He scaled a ladder to the catwalk, the structure groaning under his weight. Below, Victor barked orders, his composure cracking. Marcus grabbed a loose steel pipe and swung it at a corroded support beam. Once. Twice. On the third strike, the catwalk shuddered, collapsing in a cacophony of screeching metal. Victor's men scrambled, but one was crushed under the wreckage. The other fired wildly, bullets ricocheting. Marcus dropped from the collapsing platform, landing hard but rolling behind a pillar. His shoulder burned, blood soaking his sleeve. "You're dead, Johnson." Victor screamed, his voice raw. "You hear me? Dead." Marcus didn't wait. He lunged for the injured gunman, disarming him with a brutal twist of his wrist. The man's scream was cut short by a chokehold. Marcus dragged him into the shadows. "How many more are outside?" he hissed. The man spat blood. "Go to hell." Marcus tightened his grip. "T2 cars. I'll ask once more. For men." Marcus knocked him out cold and grabbed his weapon, a Glock 19. Familiar, reliable. He moved toward a broken window, glass crunching underfoot. Outside, rain blurred the shapes of two SUVs parked near the fence. 4 figures huddled nearby, smoking. Too many, Marcus's mind raced. He couldn't fight them all, not wounded. But he'd survived worse. The raid had been a setup. Intel said the house was empty. Instead, Marcus's team walked into an ambush. He'd dragged 2 rookies out alive but couldn't save the family caught in the crossfire. The agency called it collateral damage. Marcus called it a failure. "You're a damn hero, Johnson," his supervisor had said, clapping him on the back. "Heroes don't let kids die," Marcus had replied. He quit the next morning. Back in the warehouse, Marcus's vision blurred. Blood loss. He ripped his sleeve, fashioning a tourniquet. Focus, he needed a distraction. A gasoline canister sat near the SUVs. Marcus took aim and fired. The canister exploded, engulfing one vehicle in flames. The men scattered, shouting. Marcus slipped out the window, clinging to shadows. 2 gangsters ran past, he dropped them with precise shots. The remaining 2 opened fire. Marcus ducked behind a dumpster, bullets pinging off metal. He counted their shots, *14 rounds, when the click of empty magazines echoed, he struck. A knife from his boot found the first man's thigh. The second swung a crowbar, but Marcus disarmed him, landing a crushing elbow to his temple. Breathing hard, Marcus staggered to the street. He needed to disappear. Now. An hour later, Marcus slumped in the corner of a derelict motel room, stitching his shoulder with a needle and thread. The Kings would hunt him relentlessly. His apartment was compromised. His job, gone. His burner phone buzzed. Unknown number. Marcus and Elena sat in the dim glow of the motel room, the flickering neon sign outside casting jagged shadows across maps and weaponry spread over the bed. Torres traced a finger over a satellite image of a sprawling estate nestled in the hills outside the city. "Vega's compound," she said. "He's hosting a meeting tonight with the Kings. They're scrambling after the shipment blew up, this is their chance to regroup." Marcus studied the image, his eyes lingering on the perimeter walls and guard towers. Heavily fortified. Cameras, motion sensors, patrols. Even if we get in, getting out alive's another story. Torres smirked, pulling a USB drive from her pocket. "That's where this comes in. Blueprints, security codes, shift rotations, courtesy of a friend in Vega's inner circle. You still have friends in hell. Let's just say money talks. She plugged the drive into a laptop, pulling up schematics. There's a sewage tunnel here. Lead straight under the east wing. Guards change shifts at midnight. That's our window. Marcus leaned back, arms crossed. You're asking me to crawl through shit to get to Vega. Got a better idea? Left at dusk, dressed in black tactical gear, faces smeared with grease paint. As they drove, Marcus's mind wandered back to Detroit. The screams. The smoke. The way the youngest child's hand had gone limp in his grip as he tried to drag her from the burning house. You're slipping, Johnson, Torres said, snapping him back. She'd always had a sixth sense for his spirals. Just tired, he lied. She didn't press. Instead, she tossed him a protein bar. Eat. You'll need it. Silence settled between them, broken only by the hum of the engine. Finally, Torres spoke again, her voice softer. Vega killed my partner, but that's not the whole story. Carlos, he was more than that. We were engaged. Marcus glanced at her. The raw edge in her voice was new. Vega slit his throat in front of me during a raid, she continued, staring at the road. Laughed while he did it. That's why I quit. Not because of the Bureau. Because I wanted to hunt Vega my way. No rules. No red tape. Marcus nodded. Revenge won't fix you. Neither will hiding, she shot back. Why'd you really leave the FBI, Marcus? Guilt? Or cowardice? The words hung in the air, sharp as a blade. Marcus gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles whitened. The sewage tunnel reeked of rot and chemicals, the sludge clinging to their boots as they crawled. Marcus led the way, a suppressed pistol in one hand, a flashlight in the other. Rats skittered past, their eyes gleaming in the beam. They emerged in a basement storage room, the sound of distant chatter and clinking glasses filtering through the vents. Marcus checked his watch, 11:58 p.m. 2 minutes until shift change. Stick to the plan, Torres whispered. Plant the charges in the armory, then meet me in the server room. We cripple their weapons and intel in one blow. Marcus nodded, slipping into the hallway. The estate was a grotesque display of wealth, gold-framed paintings, marble floors, chandeliers dripping with crystals. He moved like a shadow, avoiding cameras and ducking into alcoves as guards passed. The armory was guarded by 2 men playing cards. Marcus disabled them with 2 silent shots to the neck, catching their bodies before they hit the floor. Inside, rows of assault rifles, grenades, and crates of ammunition lined the walls. He placed magnetic explosives on the support beams, setting the timer for 20 minutes. As he turned to leave, a voice crackled over a nearby radio, "All units, sweep the grounds. Johnson's here. Boss wants him alive." Shit, the Kings had warned Vega, where Torres was already hacking into Vega's network. They know I'm here, he hissed. Then hurry. She typed furiously, downloading files. Got it, names, deals, bank accounts. Enough to bury Vega and the Kings forever. A gunshot rang out. The monitor beside Torres exploded in a shower of sparks. They dove for cover as bullets tore through the door. Victor Crane stepped inside, flanked by 6 Kings. His suit was immaculate, his smile venomous. Did you really think we wouldn't track you here, Johnson? Vega's not the only one with a price on your head. Marcus raised his pistol, but Victor tossed a photo onto the floor, a young boy, no older than 8, sitting on a school bus. Marcus's bus. Jamal, his regular passenger who always sat in the front seat, chattering about dinosaurs and superheroes. Cute kid, Victor said. Be a shame if something happened to him. Marcus's blood turned to ice. You touch him, and You'll what? Victor laughed. You're out of moves, Agent. Drop the gun, or the kid dies tonight. Torres met Marcus's eyes, a silent question. He nodded imperceptibly. She lunged for the detonator and rocked the estate, flames erupting from the east wing. Alarms blared, and the panicked shouts of guards echoed through the halls. Marcus used the chaos to strike, disarming the nearest king and emptying the magazine into the group. Torres took down two more with a combat knife, her movements ruthless and precise. Victor fled, vanishing into the smoke. Go! Torres shouted, shoving the USB into Marcus's hand. Get to the kid. I'll hold them off. Not a chance. Go, she pushed him toward the exit, her eyes blazing. This is my fight too. Marcus hesitated, then ran. Behind him, the sound of gunfire faded as he burst into the night, the compound burning in his wake. Jamal's house was dark when Marcus arrived, his heart pounding. He picked the lock, pistol raised, and crept inside. Empty. A note lay on the kitchen table, written in red ink, you should have stayed retired. Marcus's phone buzzed, a video from Victor. Jamal sat bound to a chair in a concrete room, tears streaking his face. Behind him, a king held a knife to his throat. Midnight tomorrow, Victor's voice snarled. Alone. Or the kid dies live on the internet. The screen went black. Marcus sank to his knees, the weight of failure crushing him. He'd sworn to protect the innocent. Now, another life was in the crossfire because of his past. But surrender wasn't an option. He loaded his pistol, his resolve hardening. Marcus stood in the abandoned auto shop he'd once used as a safe house during his FBI days. The walls were lined with tools, dusty tarps, and a faded poster of a city skyline. Jamal's backpack sat on a workbench, still stuffed with homework and a half-eaten granola bar. The kid had left it on the bus that morning, a morning that felt like years ago. Victor's deadline loomed, midnight tomorrow. Marcus had 18 hours to find Jamal or watch him die. He'd spent the last two combing through Vega's downloaded files, tracing Victor's known hideouts, but the kings had gone ghost. No chatter. No patrols. Just silence. The shop door creaked open. Elena stepped inside, her arm bandaged from the compound firefight, her expression unreadable. You look terrible, she said, tossing him a paper bag. Inside, a bacon sandwich, black coffee, and a box of 9mm rounds. You followed me, Marcus said flatly. You're welcome. She leaned against the doorframe, studying him. You're going after the kid. Alone. Because you're a martyr with a death wish. You got a better idea? Yeah. Let me help. Marcus unwrapped the sandwich, though he had no appetite. Why? Because Vega's still breathing. And Victor's cockroaches are guarding him. She paused. And because Jamal doesn't deserve this. Neither do you. Marcus eyed her. The unspoken truth hung between them, Elena needed this as much as he did. Revenge for her fiancé. Redemption for her failures. They were mirrors, reflecting each other's obsessions. Fine, he said. Victor's video but we geotagged the warehouse district by the docks, but the concrete room Jamal was in could have been anywhere. Marcus and Elena narrowed it down to 3 locations using police dispatch logs, abandoned factories the kings used for interrogations. They chose the most likely, a defunct meatpacking plant, its skeletal smokestacks looming against the stormy sky. Elena hacked the security feed, revealing 4 heat signatures inside. 2 guards. Victor. Jamal. Too easy, Marcus muttered. It's a trap, Elena agreed. So we spring it. They split up. Elena took the roof, a sniper rifle slung over her shoulder. Marcus approached the front door, a duffel bag in hand. Inside, the stench of decay clung to the air. Fluorescent lights flickered, illuminating bloodstains on the floor. Victor waited in the center of the room, Jamal gagged and tied to a chair beside him. The boy's eyes widened when he saw Marcus. "Right on time," Victor said, aiming a pistol at Jamal's head. "Drop the bag. Kick it here." Marcus complied. The bag slid across the floor. Victor opened it, cash, as demanded. He laughed. "You really thought I wanted money? I want you broken. Begging. Like you made me beg in that warehouse." Marcus kept his voice steady. "Let the kid go. This is between us." Victor backhanded Jamal, splitting his lip. "No. This is education. You humiliated me. Now I teach you what happens when you cross the kings." A shadow shifted in the rafters. "Knees, Victor ordered. Elena. Or I put a bullet in him." Marcus knelt, hands raised. Victor nodded to a guard, who stepped forward with zip ties. "You're gonna watch Vega carve you apart," Victor sneered. "And then we'll mail pieces of you to everyone you ever." A shot rang out. The guard dropped, a hole between his eyes. Chaos erupted. Elena picked off the second guard as Marcus lunged for Victor. They grappled, crashing into the chair. Jamal screamed, toppling sideways. Marcus slammed Victor's wrist against the floor until the gun clattered away. "Run, Jamal!" Marcus shouted. The boy wriggled free, sprinting for the exit. Victor headbutted Marcus, then scrambled for the gun. Marcus tackled him, fists flying. Blood sprayed. Bones cracked. Victor's face became a pulp, but he kept laughing. "You can't win," he gurgled. "Vega's coming." A engine roared outside. Armored SUVs skidded to a halt, disgorging a dozen cartel soldiers. Vega's men. Elena dropped from the rafters, tossing Marcus a rifle. "Back door. Go." They fled through a maze of freezers, Jamal clutching Marcus's hand. Behind them, bullets shredded the walls. They regrouped in a church basement, the kind of place that asked no questions. Jamal slept fitfully on a cot, his face bruised but alive. Marcus cleaned his Glock, replaying Victor's words. "Vega's coming." Elena bandaged a gash on her arm. "We need to move. Vega's got scouts everywhere." "Not yet." Marcus nodded to Jamal. "Let him rest." She hesitated. "You're getting attached. That's dangerous. He's a kid. He shouldn't be part of this. None of us should." She met his gaze. "But here we are." The door creaked open. A priest entered, his face pale. "There's men outside. They're asking for you." Marcus peered through a stained glass window. Vega stood on the steps, flanked by sicarios. His scarred face twisted into a smile. Marcus "Time's up, Jamal his Agent phone, J. Pre-dialed to 911. Stay hidden. When I say run, you dial. Understand?" The boy nodded, trembling. Elena loaded her rifle. "You got a plan? Distract them. You take the left flank. I'll take the right. And then pray." They burst through the doors, guns blazing. Vega's men scattered for cover. Marcus and Elena moved in sync, a dance of fire and retreat, honed by years of combat. But they were outnumbered. A bullet tore through Elena's leg. She fell, cursing. Marcus dragged her behind a pillar as rounds chipped the stone. Vega strode forward, a machete in hand. "I've waited years for this, Pendejo. You took my brother. Now I take your head." Marcus ejected his empty magazine. One bullet left. Then, sirens. Jamal had called the cops. Vega spat, retreating to his SUV. This isn't over. The cartel vanished as police swarmed the scene. At the precinct, Marcus gave a fake name. Jamal was reunited with his mother, who hugged Marcus so tightly he forgot to breathe. Elena vanished during the chaos, leaving a note. Asterisk, Vega's mine. Stay alive, Johnson. Asterisk. That night, Marcus stood on the roof of his motel, staring at the city. His burner phone buzzed, a news alert. Asterisk, cartel leader Rafael Vega found dead in apparent gang hit. Asterisk. A shadow approached. Elena, limping, her face bloodied but triumphant. She tossed him a USB drive. Vega's empire dies with him. The Kings are next. Marcus pocketed the drive. What now? She lit a cigarette, the ember glowing in the dark. We keep fighting. Or we disappear. He thought of Jamal's smile. The weight of the Glock in his hand. The ghosts he'd never outrun. The USB drive burned a hole in Marcus's pocket. Its contents, bank accounts, drug routes, names of crooked cops on the King's payroll, were a roadmap to annihilation. But dismantling the gang wouldn't be quiet. It would be a war. Elena spread the files across the hood of their stolen sedan, parked in a derelict parking garage. Victor's still alive, she said, tapping a surveillance photo. The image showed Victor, face bandaged, meeting with a shadowy figure in a tailored suit. And he's got a new partner. Meet Silas Grant. Real estate mogul by day, King's financier by night. He's the one laundering their cash. Marcus studied the photo. Grant's cold eyes and sharp jawline screamed privilege and cruelty. Take him down, the Kings bleed. And Victor dies, Elena added. But Grant's hosting a charity gala tonight. Hundreds of civilians. Perfect cover. Marcus frowned. You want to hit him in public? No. We make him panic. Leak his dirty secrets mid-speech. When he flees, we intercept. Risky. So is breathing. Grant Tower glittered like a diamond, its glass facade reflecting the city's skyline. Marcus adjusted his tuxedo collar, the pistol strapped to his ankle a familiar comfort. Elena, in a crimson gown, looped her arm through his. Ready to dance. The ballroom was a sea of champagne and arrogance. Grant stood at the podium, oozing charm as he praised his philanthropy. Elena slipped into the crowd, planting hacked audio devices. Marcus lingered near the exits, scanning for threats. At Elena's signal, the screens flickered. Grant's voice boomed, asterisk, move the heroine through the waterfront. Pay off the DA. Asterisk. The crowd gasped. Grant froze, his face draining of color. Chaos erupted. Marcus intercepted Grant at the service elevator, slamming him against the wall. Where's Victor? Grant spat. You're too late. The garage was a labyrinth of luxury cars and concrete. Elena revved the sedan's engine. Move. They peeled out, Victor's SUV roaring behind them. A high-speed chase tore through downtown, horns blaring. Marcus leaned out the window, returning fire. They're hurting us. Elena shouted. The road narrowed into a tunnel, a dead end. Victor's SUV rammed them, metal screeching. The sedan spun, slamming into a pillar. Elena groaned, blood trickling from her temple. Marcus dragged her out as Victor's men surrounded them. Victor emerged, his face a grotesque mask of stitches and hatred. You took my empire. Now I take everything. He raised a pistol, but a sniper shot rang out, dropping his men one by one. Cops? No. A figure stepped from the shadows, Agent Daniel Carter, Marcus's old FBI partner. Miss me? Carter said, lowering his rifle. Carter's safe house was a sterile apartment, stocked with weapons and regret. Marcus hadn't seen him since Detroit, since the cover-up. You've been busy, Carter said, tossing Elena an ice pack. The Bureau's been watching. They want Grant's files. And you too, contained. Elena laughed. So they sent you to sweet-talk us? I'm here to help. The Kings have a mole in the FBI. That's how Victor knew about the compound raid. Marcus stiffened. A mole, that explained the ambushes, the leaks. Who? Carter hesitated. Someone high up. I need the USB to prove it. Elena gripped her pistol. Why should we trust you? Because Victor's next target is Jamal's school bus. Today. Right now. Marcus's blood turned to ice. The school bus he bolted through midday traffic. Marcus weaved through cars on a stolen motorcycle, Elena and Carter trailing in a van. Victor's black SUV swerved into the bus's lane, gunmen hanging from the windows. Jamal's in the back. Elena shouted over comms. Marcus gunned the engine, pulling alongside the SUV. A gunman took aim at the bus tires. Marcus tackled him, both men tumbling onto the asphalt. The bus driver screamed, swerving. Jamal peered through the rear window, eyes wide. Marcus rolled to his feet, firing at the SUV's tires. It veered into a lamppost, exploding in a fireball. Victor crawled from the wreckage, lunging for Marcus. You lose. Victor rasped, clutching a detonator. The bus is rigged. Marcus tackled him, their struggle a blur of fists and rage. The detonator skittered away. Elena scooped it up. Got it. Victor laughed, blood bubbling on his lips. You'll never win. Marcus snapped his neck. The bus stopped, children crying as police swarmed. Jamal hugged Marcus, trembling. You came back. Always, Marcus whispered. Carter approached, FBI agents flanking him. It's over, Marcus. Come in quietly. I'll protect you. Elena cocked her pistol. Don't do it. Marcus stared at Carter. The mole. The truth. He handed Carter the USB, then grabbed his wrist, revealing a king's tattoo. You're the leak. Carter's smile faded. You're outnumbered. Am I? Elena's sniper shot pierced Carter's shoulder. He fell, agents scattering children and crying as police swarmed. Jamal hugged Marcus, trembling. You came back. Always, Marcus whispered. Carter approached, FBI agents flanking him. It's over, Marcus. Come in quietly. I'll protect you. Elena cocked her pistol. Don't do it. Marcus stared at Carter. The mole. The truth. He handed Carter the USB, then grabbed his wrist, revealing a king's tattoo. You're the leak. Carter's smile faded. You're outnumbered. Am I? Elena's sniper shot pierced Carter's shoulder. He fell, agents scattering in confusion. Marcus tossed the USB into a storm drain. Tell the Bureau they'll never find it. He walked away, Elena at his side. The city was a tinderbox. News vans swarmed the charred wreckage of Victor Crane's SUV, their spotlights painting the street in stark whites and blues. Marcus watched from the rooftop of a condemned apartment building, binoculars in hand. Below, FBI agents cordoned off the scene, their faces tight with frustration. The USB was gone, Carter was in custody, and the Bureau's reputation was crumbling under the weight of its own corruption. But the victory felt hollow. Elena emerged from the stairwell, her trench coat flapping in the wind. She tossed him a lukewarm coffee. They're calling us terrorists. Vigilantes. The news is spinning it like we're the problem. Marcus lowered the binoculars. They're scared. The Kings might be broken, but the rot goes deeper. Politicians, cops, judges. Carter was just the start. So what's next? We keep hunting. Or disappear. He didn't answer. The question had haunted him since the school bus. Jamal's face flashed in his mind, the relief in the boy's eyes, the way he'd clung to Marcus like a lifeline. He'd promised himself he'd walk away once the Kings fell. But promises, like bones, were made to be broken. Elena's phone buzzed. An encrypted message lit the screen, "Meet me. Midnight. Pier 7. Come alone, asterisk graveyard of rusted shipping containers and rotting fishing nets." Fog clung to the harbor, muffling the clang of buoys and the cry of gulls. Marcus crouched behind a crane, scanning the shadows. Elena stood in the open, a silhouette against the mist. A figure emerged from the fog, a woman in a tailored pantsuit, her hair streaked with silver. Marcus's breath caught. Adrian Cole, his former FBI supervisor. The architect of the Detroit cover-up. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Marcus," Cole said, her voice smooth as poison. Elena's hand drifted toward her holster. "What do you want?" "To offer a truce. The Bureau is willing to forget your indiscretions. In exchange for your silence." Marcus stepped into the light. "And the Kings? The mole? Gone. Carter's taking the fall. The rest will retire quietly." Cole smiled. "You win. Now let it go. And the kids in Detroit?" Marcus's voice was a blade. "The ones you called collateral. They just disappear too." Cole's mask slipped. "You always were sentimental. That's why you failed." Elena drew her pistol. "Walk away. Now." Cole didn't flinch. "You'll regret this." The fog swallowed her as she retreated. Part 3, The Devil's Bargain. They regrouped in a storage unit cluttered with weapons and surveillance gear. Marcus paced, his mind racing. Cole's offer was a trap, he knew that. But the alternative was war. Elena hacked into police databases, her screen flashing with red alerts. The Kings aren't done. They're regrouping in the industrial district. Rumor is they've got a new leader. Who? Unknown. But they're moving product tonight. Guns, drugs, girls. A final shipment. Marcus stared at the map on her screen. The industrial district, abandoned factories, crumbling warehouses, perfect for a last stand. We hit them. Burn it all. And Cole. The FBI warehouse was a nightmare. After. Crates of weapons lined the walls. Women and children huddled in cages, their eyes hollow with fear. And at the center of it all, Cole, barking orders at King's lieutenants. Marcus's blood boiled. He placed explosives on support beams, his hands steady. But as he turned to leave, a child's whimper froze him. A girl, no older than 6, reached through the bars. Detroit. He couldn't leave them. Elena, change of plan, he hissed into his calm, hostages in the warehouse. I'm getting them out. Marcus, no, the charges are set. Buy me time. He shot the lock off the nearest cage. Stay close, he told the girl. We're leaving. Chaos erupted. Cole's voice rang out over the gunfire. Marcus Johnson. You just don't know when to quit. He turned. Cole stood atop a catwalk, a detonator in hand. Drop your weapon, or I blow us all to hell. The hostages screamed. Marcus raised his hands. You're insane. No. Pragmatic. She smiled. The King's final shipment was never guns or drugs. It was you. A rogue FBI agent, killed in a firefight. The perfect scapegoat. Elena's voice crackled in his ear. Charges disabled. Get clear. Marcus lunged, tackling Cole. The detonator clattered away. They grappled, crashing through a railing. Cole's head struck concrete. Marcus scooped up the detonator. It's over. Cole laughed, blood staining her teeth. You'll never win. He left her there. The warehouse burned behind them as Marcus herded the hostages to safety. Elena covered their retreat, picking off kings with lethal precision. Sirens wailed in the distance. Go. Elena shoved him toward a waiting van. I'll hold them off. Not this time. Marcus grabbed her arm. We leave together. They fled as the compound exploded, the fireball lighting the cliffside highway, the ocean roaring below. Elena bandaged Marcus's burns, her hands steady. Cole's dead, she said. The kings are ash. What now? Marcus stared at the horizon. I have to say goodbye. Jamal's house was quiet. Marcus left a note on the doorstep, stay safe. Keep fighting. And a toy dinosaur from the bus. As he turned to leave, the door creaked open. Jamal stood there, tears in his eyes. You're leaving? Marcus knelt. Yeah, kid. But I'll always be here if you need me. Jamal hugged him. Promise? Promise. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. Elena drove, her eyes on the road. Where to? Marcus leaned back, the wind in his hair. Somewhere new. Somewhere quiet. She smiled. Liar. He didn't argue.